Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for YouTube back with my third video for you today. I've got one more video to do, but it's not until tonight. I'm going to have a guest on tonight, so it's going to be really cool. And really, this video is sort of a segue to that one later because I want to talk about the first seance that is ever conducted that we see in Dark Shadows, and that's a seance at the Great House where, where Dr. Peter Guthrie, uh, and Carolyn, Victoria Winters, Roger Collins, all hold a seance to contact the ghost of Josette Dupre Collins. And, it's a really, how important is this seance? It's important in moving the plot forward, and I think that's what it doesn't get enough credit for. Seances in Dark Shadows aren't just stopgaps. They're not just stopgaps and plot points, and are not just a part of the plot point. They're an important part of the plot point because they're to move the plot forward, to build even more intrigue of what's going on around you. We know that Victoria Winters has sort of been getting this inclination of Josette's been trying to reach out to her. And so this seance gets put together. Now, Mrs. Johnson does not like this seance, and she's not going to like the seance at the old house. Mrs. Johnson doesn't like much of any kind of seance. It's like Mrs. Johnson dinners. No one likes them. But anyway, I kid. Um, really, what's really interesting is Laura Collins, Roger's wife, does not initially agree to the seance, but decides to show up. And she shows up in very distinct fashion. But before she does, there's a great conversation between Victoria Winters, Carolyn, that she says that she feels something's going to happen to her at one of these at a séance. Now, would I classify becoming possessed by a ghost and a ghost speaking through you something happening? No, I wouldn't. To me, it's just another day at the office when you're Dark Shadows, especially if you're Victoria Winters. That woman is a lightning rod full of ghosts. And she is. I mean, Victoria Winters is Dark Shadow's lead protagonist at the time. I mean, there's no Barnabas in sight yet. You've got to take that into consideration. So when the ghost of Josette speaks through her, and she's speaking French, and that's Josette speaking through her, it's a very great moment. But it's also great acting, not just by Alexandra Mortial. She does a great job, but by Diana Malay, who does a great job of giving these facial expressions. Like she's like, "Shut up." She's saying almost like "shut up" with her face, and she's like casting the spell of to get this ghost out of Victoria Winter's body without setting her on fire in front of a bunch of witnesses. And she's doing this very discreetly, which I love. The seance in the Great House is a really interesting one, not just because of how it got built up, but the fact that it's being done. And I mean, Carolyn, really, another thing too to note with this seance, Carolyn really, to show you she's more than just some blonde, is an interesting character. She does take charge and sort of buck up against not only Roger, but Laura Collins herself. There are two really great protagonists during the Phoenix arc. First of all, obviously, well, three. First of all, Victoria Winters. She's the obvious. We know the ghost of Josette. But Carolyn Collins' daughter, Nancy Barrett, does not get enough credit for her playing a protagonist during this arc. She really takes charge, and she's not afraid to show it either, which is great. She's very much her mother's daughter during this arc in every way. And it's beautiful to watch. Her interactions and Lewis Edmonds' interactions are perfect. Her and Burke's interactions. She's a lot more tougher character too than what she was earlier on, where she was this vulnerable kid almost. I'm not saying she's a kid, but she's this vulnerable teenager. Now she's becoming this mature adult in this very moment. Really, Victoria Winters is as well. I mean, they both have to come to the realization of something supernatural needs their help. I've talked about how the ghost used the living, and this is just a key example of here's Josette using Victoria Winters as her agent, if you will, or her tool to fight this very monster that is the Phoenix. And but in a same sort of weird way, is Carolyn being used by Josette? No, but she's being guided by Vicky in a way who is being used by Josette. She's siding with Vicky at least, and that's a key moment in the series, and I love it. When now the seance in the first seance in the old house, the that we see that's also for the Phoenix arc, where it's the episode Dr. Guthrie dies in. He doesn't make it to that seance. So what we have here is a different seance. So we have Victoria Winters, we have David Collins, and we have Sam Evans. It's really, really interesting. So I love this. Now, is it as big as of a seance as the first one? No, but it is important that this happened because they do get an inkling of what may happen to young David. Also, when I get into the seance tonight, I want to point out something, and I'll wait to point that out tonight because it's really good to build up to that. The second seance in the old house is a masterpiece, and I love it. Um, what's the best thing about the first seance? It's hard to tell because the build up to it is so good. Because keep in mind, Dr. Guthrie, most people might say, well, Dr. Guthrie, was he always headhunting Laura or the Phoenix? No. In many ways, Dr. Guthrie was neutral in the matter. He was just trying to figure out what happened to Elizabeth or what caused it. He was more of an investigative doctor, more so than an in your face character like maybe a Reverend Trask would be. So he was very laid back, and it's a very refreshing character to see because he's not in your face, he's not overbearing. So you're wondering, okay, this is an interesting character, and he's not a Collins, so he's an outsider. So you wonder how long he's going to last. And as my buddy Mark Gilman has pointed out, when you find out too much information, well, you're deader than a doornail. And that's the case with Dr. Guthrie. Dr. Guthrie had more than figured out that Laura is a Phoenix. And so he had to go by way of car accident, uh, causing his car to flip, burst into flames, and Dr. Guthrie was up in smoke, as we said. Now, prior to that, again, he had been neutral. He was listening. Again, Dr. Guthrie, the one thing Dr. Guthrie does really well, and this is a mark of any great actor, the actor who played him, he's listening. He's not just speaking, he's listening to all sides of things. And he's not trying to be overbearing to anybody. And I love the character for it. But as he slowly starts investigating things, he is sort of, okay, there's something going on here. And one of the biggest moments is when he asks, is there anyone that knows this area well? And they say, yeah, Joe Haskell. And Joe Haskell gets asked to dig up a grave. Poor Joe. Poor Joe. Oh my gosh. Joe, I have a job for you. What is it? Dig up. What was that? What do you mean? Dig up a grave. Yeah, that's. I, Joel Carruthers' performance in the Phoenix arc doesn't get enough credit too. Again, there's a lot of great performances. Obviously, I could go on and on. Dan Millay, Alexander Mokiels, Lewis Edmonds, Nancy Barrett, Joel Carruthers, the guy that played Dr. Guthrie, Sam Evans. The character of Sam Evans played by David Ford, really stands out in that arc too. His hands getting burned is really part of a storytelling in itself. And the painting he keeps drawing too is amazing. I mean, the Phoenix, and he's like, "What does it mean? What does it mean?" to Roger Collins, who him and Roger can't stand each other, but he's being serious to Roger. What does this mean? Like I keep drawing your wife here. Help me out. He doesn't know why. The build up to that seance, to the very first seance, and even to the second seance that happens in the old house, is so good. It's criminally underrated. And that's my opinion on that. So, all right, guys, that's my third video for you today. I have one more video for you, and it's later tonight. You guys have a great Friday, and I'll see you tonight.